She was a Fass, and he was a Morley. So, of course, was the Major. The Boer War had left him with very little except a helmet that he rapidly had converted into a biscuit tin, which he would then keep in the halls of his various abodes. He had also been slightly wounded in South Africa, maintaining that the bullet had entered too close to his heart to be safely removed surgically. Thereafter, in times of stress, he would clutch his stomach and cry, "I feel it moving," this often being enough to deter his creditors. If that failed, however, he would sometimes take to his bed and threaten suicide with his old Boer revolver if his debts were not immediately taken care of by some relative or other. Often the debts could be taken care of because the Major's parents had thoughtfully entailed some of their assets for just such a purpose, hoping to keep the money out of direct contact with their spendthrift son. "There never has been an entail," cried the Major later, "through which a good lawyer cannot drive a coach and horses." And many of my father's earliest memories of childhood concerned his father's various searches for just the right coachman. Family holidays were taken, wherever possible, within the immediate vicinity of the nearest roulette wheel. Whenever Daisy and her own despairing family complained of the Major's spendthrift ways, he would sigh and murmur self-sacrificingly, "Only trying to make a few pennies for you and the children, dear," before disappearing back into the welcoming gloom of the Salon des Jeux. On the rare occasions when the ball landed in the right socket, he would return to the steps of the casino and thrust 1,000-franc notes at his children, enjoining them to take this before the rats get it. It was not until Robert was 16 that his parents achieved even an informal separation, and they never divorced. But the Major was as temperamentally unsuited to marriage as he was to any fixed address, and as a result Robert's childhood was spent on the move between Folkestone, South Kensington in London, and the Fass family home in Chalfont St Giles, to which last they would repair when the Major's fortunes had sunk below the level of any possible rent. Of these three addresses, Robert infinitely preferred Folkestone. Something about its already faintly decayed gentility, the roller skating near the pier, the man selling raspberry sherbet on the beach, appealed to him to such an extent that 60 or 70 years later he could still be brought up short by an evening paper paragraph headlined "Minor Accident in Folkestone High Street, None Hurt." Courtfield Gardens was the centre of Robert's early London life. Both sets of grandparents lived there and only ventured north of the park when it was necessary to purchase chocolates or other essentials at Selfridge's. The Major, perhaps determined that his son and heir should see more of London life than was available from Courtfield Gardens, took him on more perilous excursions. On one memorable occasion to Limehouse, which he reckoned was the heart of the drug trade, and should therefore be shown to the young Robert as an example of the kind of place to be avoided at all costs in later life. Father and son entered a small Chinese grocery, which the Major had discerned as an ill-disguised opium den. It was July. "Got any snow, mother?" asked the Major in what he took to be the colloquial language of Limehouse opium traders circa 1915. "Snow?" responded the lady behind the counter. "You'd need to come back in December for that." A very secretive lot, these Chinese, opined the Major, as they left to start the long journey back to Courtfield Gardens and a safe tea. Despite all the eccentric pleasures of London life, Robert's heart was still in Folkestone. The local cleric was Canon Elliot, father of the Michael Elliot, who many years later founded the 59 Theatre Company and then the revolutionary Royal Exchange Theatre in Manchester. Elliot's performances in his Folkestone pulpit were Robert's introduction to great acting. He later recalled, "Canon Elliot was the first star I ever knew. In those days he was what they called an eminent divine. He wore the most beautiful cassocks and had the most beautiful voice, and all Folkestone was at his feet. On Sunday evenings when he preached, you had to be in church an hour before the service, or you didn't get in." Suitably enough, it was the Canon who first got Robert, aged 5, into the acting profession. Every Christmas, a highlight of the festivities was the annual Folkestone Mystery Play, which Robert vaguely expected to be a thriller, but which turned out to be rather more religious. The Canon would always write and direct these himself, sitting at a card table in the church, looking apparently very like the director Tyrone Guthrie. Eventually, he decided that Robert was ready for one of the starring roles.